I'm going to start with a short reading from the yellow wallpaper written by Charlotte Gilman. "What is the matter?" you cried, "for God's sakes? What are you doing?" I kept on creeping just the same, but I looked at him over my shoulder. "I've got out at last," said I, "in spite of you and Jane, and I pulled off most of the paper, so you can't put me back in." End of quote. I find this quote very interesting. The reason why I find this quote interesting is that this story is written in 1890, a time where mental illness was not addressed. In particular, postpartum is a mental illness that people were unaware of and didn't recognize or understand or had any kind of education to know what an individual such as a woman would be suffering. Postpartum is the illness that comes after childbirth. It's changes in hormones and just becoming a mother and being unaware of all these different changes that come in your body. It's interesting in the story how that there are insights of how this woman's feeling and how she is suffering from a condition that she doesn't feel like herself. For instance, her sister-in-law named Jane comes into the story and to take care of this baby that she has recently had, because it talks about how the narrator suffers from a mental nervous condition. They did not say mental, they just a nervous condition. And that there is addresses to blackberries and grapes, and in religious meanings, blackberries or blueberries are decline rates in cognitive feelings, so depression, anxiety. This story has all these different kind of insights how a person may be feeling and referencing to what they feel like. So the question arises is, do antidepressants adequately treat depression? And I want to weigh the pros and cons. So let's start with the pros. Without the choice of prescription drugs, one's mental illness could escalate and cause a fictitious or a fantasy reality, or it might sink into this uncharacteristic person and become tired and sleepy and sad and just not their regular selves. So with antidepressants, this allows a person to create these neurotransmitters to start to feel like better and release hormones that they are lacking, that the person needs in order to start to come out of their depression. So I think that having antidepressants is a first line of defense for a person to start to feel like themselves, to produce these neurotransmitters like serotonin that allow you to feel good. Antidepressants may not be for all, but they are definitely for a lot of individuals that need that start in order to feel good about themselves. So let's address the cons of antidepressants. I believe the cons of antidepressants may be that the side effects, such as gaining weight, nausea, it might hurt your stomach, and it's not a fix forever. It's a for now, and it may get you where you need to be, but it's not a forever, and you may become reliant on this medication that causes all these side effects that in the end result in a negative other than a positive. So that is something that needs to be addressed. There are other forms of other means to treating someone with a mental illness. What can be just therapy, talking about it, diet, exercise. So the pros and cons are how you make of it and what you think. It matters on the individual, how severe their mental illness may be. And the yellow wallpaper talks about this lady that is so mentally ill, and her husband tries to treat her with what he knows as tonics and phosphates, which would be not such advanced antidepressant, but maybe if he had what we have now, she could have had a chance on not becoming so depressed and so live in a fantasy in a fictitious world. Or if maybe she would have got out and wasn't so secluded and was in more in a group setting and was around her baby more so and other people, instead of just putting her in a room to be by herself and having all these thoughts and these feelings that she cannot share with anyone. So that being said, do antidepressants help with treatment or do they not? That is something to be further researched and look deeper into. I think there's pros and there's cons, and what works for one and may not work for others. I believe that Charlotte Gilman's Yellow Wallpaper addresses mental illness and addresses these pros and cons and makes you wonder if this individual that was in the story had better antidepressants or some form of intervention from a physician. She could have not been so mentally ill or not have any forms of medication and just been surrounded by people and would have been more integrated and surrounded by her baby, that she could have came to not being so mentally ill. Thank you.